When CEO Velith Course and asked Marcus to pretend to be her husband for the Galactic Merger Summit, his only question was about the sleeping arrangements, and for a moment, he could have sworn she looked disappointed by his professionalism. Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair and leaned back in his chair. He had just finished typing out an email response when Velith's intercom buzzed sharply. "Mr. Reed, please come to my office immediately," her smooth voice instructed without preamble. It wasn't unusual for her to summon him at odd hours. Marcus was used to the unpredictable rhythm of their work. As he entered her sleek and austere office, the room spun with a faint luminescence from the Corsini technology lining the walls. Velith's platinum hair was swept back in its usual severe style, casting shadows beneath her piercing violet eyes. She sat behind her desk, silver skin reflecting an eerie glow as she processed information at lightning speed. "Close the door," she commanded without lifting her gaze from a datapad floating beside her armrests. Marcus obeyed, feeling his heart rate pick up slightly despite himself. The air in this room always felt charged with tension. Something about Velith's presence could rattle even seasoned professionals like him. Once seated across from her desk, he cleared his throat and waited for the punchline to whatever bizarre situation she was concocting today. "I've received information," she began after a moment of silence heavy enough to cut into thick metal, "that my unmarried status is being used against me in upcoming merger negotiations." Marcus raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. This was hardly news to him. The Corsini valued stability and family ties above all else, a concept foreign yet intriguing to the human. "Your reputation precedes you," she continued, her voice smooth as silk despite the unyielding expression on her face. "And I find myself in need of a solution." He leaned forward slightly, his curiosity piqued despite himself. This was too outlandish even for Velith's eccentric tastes. "Which is?" Her gaze flickered to him sharply before returning to the datapad. She knew how he enjoyed puzzles. Playing with such an unusual premise would keep her mind sharp and Marcus occupied. "I need you to pretend." She paused, almost hesitantly, but only momentarily visible in the subtle shift of her iridescent skin from frosty blue to a more heated hue. "To be my husband." Marcus felt his jaw drop for just half a second before he forced it back into place. This had to be some sort of bizarre Corsini joke or ritual he hadn't encountered yet. "Do we share a bed?" he asked with deliberate clarity, feeling the corners of his mouth twitch despite himself. Velith's silver skin flushed slightly, an unusual display even for her species, but there was no mistaking it. "That won't be necessary," she said firmly, though her eyes betrayed hints of vulnerability that made Marcus' heart race in ways he wasn't prepared to admit. He smiled gently, a corner rising up despite himself, as if his usual professionalism couldn't resist the absurdity before him. "Shame," he replied softly, but pointedly. "I've heard the resort has excellent mattresses." Velith glared at him sharply. It was rare she didn't have all answers or control over every situation. This made her even more uncomfortable than his bluntness. "Marcus," she began, her voice softer now, a strange tenderness in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. He felt something shift inside of him, some deep chord resonating with the unusual request and its implications beyond just business. That this wasn't about him, it was about Velith's professional survival. "We are to appear married for appearances only," she clarified, more emotion slipping through than Marcus thought possible from her usually cold exterior. "But I need you to play your part convincingly." He nodded slowly, swallowing hard as he tried to reconcile the request with his own reservations and desires. "Understood." Velith seemed almost relieved by his compliance, but maintained a stony expression nonetheless. She was no stranger to emotional poker faces. Marcus knew how she masked feelings under rigid control in both business and personal matters. "We'll begin preparations immediately," he said, attempting to inject some normalcy into the conversation. He reached for one of her data pads, which contained the details needed: the merger summit schedule, travel arrangements, room reservations at an exclusive galactic resort known for its privacy and luxury, amenities, including plush accommodations designed specifically for couples. "You'll have security detail," she added sharply, "but they won't interfere with our charade." "Of course." Marcus nodded again. He couldn't help but be fascinated by the challenge laid out before them. It was one of those rare moments where work and personal lines blurred into something entirely new. As he prepared to leave her office once more, Lith's piercing gaze followed him, as if seeking confirmation that he wasn't merely complying with orders, but also accepting a profound responsibility. He felt himself responding to the unspoken plea in her eye, something deeper than professional trust or duty alone. When Marcus left her office, closing the door behind him gently this time, his mind raced over everything Vailith had asked and its implications beyond just playing along for appearance's sake. His heart still thudded wildly from the strange mix of emotions that coursed through him: curiosity about why she'd approached him specifically with such a request, respect towards her resilience in facing down obstacles head on without flinching, an unexpected sense of camaraderie, knowing he could be part of something more than just professional. He had no idea what kind of adventure awaited them, but one thing was clear now: Marcus Red wasn't simply going to pretend to be Vailith's husband. He'd find a way to help her through this difficult time and keep the facade from crumbling around their feet, no matter how complicated or enthralling that journey might become. Marcus made his way down the pristine corridors, reflecting on what just transpired in Vailith's office. This mission was far more complex than any other he had ever undertaken. It involved layers of deception and unspoken understanding between them both. Yet with every step, Marcus felt a strange sense of exhilaration mixed with trepidation, like climbing the highest peak without knowing if there would be solid footing beneath his feet. As he delved deeper into organizing their full marital life for public consumption, an odd feeling settled over him. While Vailith's initial proposition had shocked him out of habitually suppressing his emotions, now it stirred something within that yearned to explore uncharted territory. There was no denying the unique bond forming between them as they prepared for a masquerade bound by intricate social codes and mutual respect masked in professional courtesy. Vailith's trust cut through Marcus like a fresh breeze, refreshing yet challenging in its depth. She had chosen him, not just to play her temporary husband, but also confide in someone who understood the intricacies of their galactic society from both human and Corsini perspectives alike. In this moment, as he navigated the early steps toward fulfilling Vailith's request, while balancing professional obligations with personal boundaries yet untested waters, Marcus felt an unprecedented opportunity unfolding before him, an adventure that combined duty and desire unlike anything either of them had experienced before. For now, though, practicalities loomed large in front of him as he returned to his office to start drafting the initial plans for their unconventional journey together at the upcoming Galactic Merger Summit. The resort awaited with its high-tech luxuries designed to cater to exclusive guests like Vailith and her new human husband, each detail meticulously crafted down to custom bedding options suitable for two. As he logged into his computer, Marcus could almost imagine what it would be like sharing a room with Velith, her silver skin glowing softly under the soft lights of their suite's moonlit balcony. Part of him wondered if there might come a time when professionalism wouldn't suffice and another form of closeness could emerge between them. Yet for now, he focused on laying solid groundwork before venturing further into uncharted territory with his enigmatic boss. Their partnership would require more than just appearances. It needed genuine understanding and mutual respect built from the ground up. With a sharp nod to himself, Marcus began typing furiously into the system. A new challenge awaited him, one where he'd need all of his wit, charm, and unexpected romantic whimsy to navigate this latest twist in their relationship. Marcus stepped into Velith's office once more, his heart pounding softly in his chest as he prepared for their first public appearance together at the Galactic Merger Summit. The summit was a whirlwind of high-stakes negotiations and social politics. It was crucial that their facade held up under scrutiny from both rivals and allies alike. "Ready?" Velith's voice cut through the silence, sharp yet steady, her silver skin shimmering softly as she looked at him with those piercing violet eyes. She wore a sleek power suit, tailored to perfection, but there was an underlying tension in her posture that betrayed the calm exterior. Marcus nodded firmly, his dark hair neatly combed back from his face. "Absolutely," he said smoothly, trying not to let his mind wander too far into imagining how they would present themselves to the galaxy's elite. Together, they made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the corporate ship that ferried them to the summit resort. The hallways were lined with holographic displays and shimmering metallic walls, reflecting a series of elegant portraits in hues of silver and gold, a stark reminder of Velith's status as one of the youngest CEOs. As they entered the elevator leading down to the docking bay where their shuttle would take them to the summit resort, Marcus felt his heart race just a little more. The thought of playing this role made him nervous, both for its complexity and because it hinted at something deeper. He was hesitant to acknowledge his growing fondness for Velith. When they arrived on the ground level, a sleek black shuttle awaited them, its door sliding open automatically as they approached. A security detail lined up to escort them out of the shipyard towards their transport. Marcus kept close behind her, but noticed something peculiar about the atmosphere around him. People seemed to be whispering and watching closely. "Why are there so many people?" Marcus asked in a low voice, glancing at Velith's stern profile as they walked with military precision toward the shuttle. Velith paused briefly before stepping into the shuttle. "This is an important merger," she explained tersely, settling herself beside him once inside. The interior of the shuttle was plush and sterile, offering panoramic views through its reinforced glass windows while providing a secure ride to their destination. As they made their way toward the summit resort, Marcus caught snippets of conversations around them. Some were purely professional queries about timelines and schedules, but others held hints of gossip. He couldn't help overhearing a particularly pointed exchange between two of Velith's rivals. "Still unmarried? This merger could be her downfall if people start questioning whether she has the personal stability to lead." Marcus felt his jaw clenching slightly at those words. There was a coldness in their tone that left him with an unsettling feeling, knowing full well how important this front was for Velith's credibility and future. Upon arrival, they were whisked through high-security protocols into a luxurious hotel suite designed to cater specifically to them. The room itself was vast yet intimate, filled with state-of-the-art amenities, including custom bedding options that would accommodate both their species' needs seamlessly. Marcus found himself alone, momentarily, while Valeth spoke with the staff about final arrangements for the summit's opening ceremony tomorrow night. He moved towards one of the expansive windows overlooking lush greenery and sparkling Lakes Bayonne. The resort was stunning in its sheer magnificence, but also intimidatingly private. Every detail crafted to perfection down to the last piece of decor. It wasn't long before Valeth returned beside him, her silver skin shimmering softly under artificial sunlight that mimicked natural daylight. She spoke again in measured tones about their approach for the opening ceremony and how they would interact publicly throughout these crucial few days ahead. "Marcus," she began, her tone softer than usual, now devoid of professional formality, as if recognizing his need to understand deeply this facade they were building together. "We must appear like we are genuinely married. I trust you fully in this." There was an unspoken weight behind those words that sent a shiver down Marcus' spine, not just from the responsibility he felt, but also because it struck at something deep within him. Trust like hers wasn't easily given or earned. She had chosen him for this delicate act of subterfuge, and now more than ever before, he was acutely aware of how much their cooperation entailed. He nodded firmly once again, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand rather than letting his thoughts spiral into uncharted territories. "Understood," Marcus replied, evenly but quietly, so only she could hear him above ambient hums around them. Together they reviewed every detail of what needed doing over these next few days. Plans were made meticulously down each possible outcome scenario, including personal interactions between themselves that would need careful choreography to keep from tripping up or being seen as anything other than perfectly natural married couple behavior. Each step required a level of intimacy and understanding beyond typical professional bounds, stretching their relationship in ways neither had anticipated. When night fell, Marcus found himself alongside Valeth for dinner at the resort's exclusive restaurant, known more commonly amongst galactic elites simply by its designation, the Peak. It offered panoramic views over the sprawling beauty below them through floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Seated amidst whispered conversations and hushed laughter from other attendees already beginning to arrive early, Marcus could sense eyes upon him, and Valeth, as they entered, whispers grew louder but less audible. "Shall we start dinner?" she asked in measured tones, after their table was presented with an array of delicacies tailored both for human tastes and those of the Corsini species. She gestured towards her glass filled with some exotic fruit wine, while eyeing him curiously from under lowered eyelashes. Marcus nodded, taking a sip himself, before looking back at Valeth, who seemed almost contemplative now amidst their carefully planned public performance. He reached out to casually touch her arm, gently, but not too overtly, just enough for anyone watching them closely might think they shared something more genuine than staged chemistry. Valeth looked down slightly, then met his gaze again, a faint hint of warmth in those violet eyes that Marcus hadn't noticed before. It wasn't the coldness she usually projected publicly, but rather an unspoken gratitude and mutual respect. She smiled softly, a rare display not often seen by many outside their work environment, and said quietly, "Thank you." Marcus returned her smile with one equally warm, feeling a strange mixture of affectionate pride swell within him as he realized how natural it felt to be here beside Valeth, to play the devoted husband so perfectly that others might actually believe they were in love. But beneath this facade lay something deeper, an understanding between them built on shared challenges and mutual respect that went beyond professional duty alone. As their meal continued, Marcus found himself looking at Valeth more often than necessary, studying her silver skin under soft lighting reflecting off the lakes below as she sipped delicately from her glass. He caught glimpses of emotions playing across her face in those rare moments when she relaxed enough to show them openly, a small sigh escaping her lips, or perhaps an almost wistful look towards their shared view. It was during one such moment Marcus took another sip, his gaze lingering on Valeth's profile longingly before finally breaking the silence. "So," he began gently, as if gauging how she would react next to him in this new context, "how do we manage when everyone thinks they know everything about us?" Valeth raised an eyebrow slightly at that question, but answered without hesitation, "We continue doing exactly what we are here for, present ourselves strongly and cohesively. Let no one doubt our partnership or commitment." Marcus nodded slowly, in agreement, yet couldn't help adding a touch of playfulness to his next comment. "Right. Well, if you ever need me to be more convincing, just remind yourself, I am indeed your trusted assistant." She chuckled softly, but with genuine amusement lighting up her features for once rather than the usual frosty exterior she maintained so carefully. "Indeed," Valeth replied with a small smile that lingered longer this time before returning fully focused on their meal again. The evening wore on, and Marcus found himself effortlessly slipping into his role as not just an assistant, but someone much closer to her personal life. He anticipated her needs without being asked, ordering exactly what she wanted from the menu ahead of time, because he knew how finicky some Corsini tastes could be regarding food preparation methods or presentation styles. While they chatted lightly about work and more casual topics interspersed throughout their dinner, Marcus couldn't help but notice how much easier it felt now to bridge that gap between them. It was as if the facade of playing husband had somehow strengthened the bond already there beneath surface interaction, each carefully placed gesture or touch feeling increasingly natural. Later in private, when everyone else had dispersed back towards other parts of the resort, Marcus found himself alone with Valeth once more within their suite's moonlit balcony area, the soft light casting a serene glow over everything around them, only added to an atmosphere that felt both surreal and incredibly real at the same time. "So," he began again tentatively, but without breaking eye contact this time when meeting her gaze, "what happens after all of this is done?" Valeth looked away slightly, then back towards him thoughtfully, under dim lights filtering down gently from above. Her silver skin glowed faintly now, reflecting emotions she rarely showed openly. There was an almost melancholic yet hopeful look in those violet eyes that caught Marcus off guard. "I don't know," she admitted quietly, after a moment of silence between them, "but whatever comes next, it will include you." Marcus felt something stir within him, and something stronger than professional duty alone could explain. A warmth spread through his chest at her admission, despite knowing full well they both remained cautious about what that next might truly entail moving forward. Yet for now, in this moment, surrounded by stars twinkling brightly overhead against the darkened sky, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty: whatever path awaited them beyond these next few days of pretending, he was ready to face it beside Valeth, if she would have him, whether as just a professional partner or something far more personal. In that instant, under the moonlight and starry heavens above their balcony, they shared an unspoken agreement. Why, without needing words, they would continue playing this role, for now, until reality forced them otherwise. But whatever came after would be decided together rather than apart, which was perhaps the most romantic thought Marcus had ever entertained. about any relationship. The next morning began with a flurry of activity as preparations continued leading up to tomorrow's opening ceremony and subsequent negotiations. Marcus found himself constantly by Vailith's side, ensuring every detail aligned perfectly for their performance throughout these critical days ahead. Each interaction became more seamless between them. Every touch, glance, or word spoken felt increasingly natural rather than forced. As they moved through each public appearance together at the summit over ensuing hours, and into evenings filled with lavish dinners and formal events, Marcus couldn't help noticing how people around started believing their act grew from mere subterfuge to something more genuine. Whispers turned into openly admiring glances directed toward them. Rivals who questioned Vailith's personal stability earlier now seemed genuinely impressed by the devotion shown between her and Marcus at every turn. Rivals whispered amongst themselves they seemed genuinely in love. These words echoed quietly but unmistakably clear through Marcus' mind as he navigated another evening event with Vailith. Each moment felt like it was building up towards something larger than just appearance, something that hinted at deeper connections waiting to be explored once their professional facade ended. For now, though, everything needed focus on this performance until they reached its end point where reality would inevitably take over again. But amidst the glamour and intricacies of these few days together, pretending beyond boundaries previously untested waters remained invitingly close, ready for them should both choose to venture further into unknown territories waiting just ahead once their current mission concluded. The sprawling hotel suite was a testament to luxury and modern galactic architecture, its rooms seamlessly blending technology and comfort in ways that seemed both alien yet familiar. The balcony, overlooking the twinkling cityscape below, offered breathtaking views of the cosmos beyond, but tonight it remained untouched by either pair's presence. Inside, Vailith had barely broken her gaze from a stack of datapads detailing tomorrow's merger negotiations, while Marcus moved about their temporary home like an old hand, preparing drinks, ensuring everything was in place for what promised to be another long day. As the room buzzed with quiet efficiency, they both knew tonight marked more than just preparation. It signaled the beginning of a charade that would test not only their professionalism, but also any personal boundaries they might have set. Marcus paused by Vailith's side, her intense focus on negotiations visible through the thin screen separating them from reality. "You ready?" he asked softly, handing over an untouched glass. She glanced up at him momentarily before nodding sharply. "I'm always prepared," she replied coolly, though Marcus noticed a hint of strain around her eyes that betrayed more than just business concerns. "True enough," Marcus offered with a gentle smile, the kind reserved for moments when professionalism needed easing by genuine concern. Their suite was designed to reflect marital bliss, complete with flowers, chocolates, and even a single bed. It had all felt slightly absurd at first glance, but now seemed almost comically necessary given their circumstances. As night fell, Marcus moved toward the couch tucked into one corner of the living area, preparing for what would surely be an uncomfortable sleep. Vailith's gaze followed him with curiosity, perhaps a touch of something else he couldn't quite place in her violet eyes. "Don't be ridiculous," she said firmly, as if reading his intentions directly from his actions alone. "We're adults." Marcus turned to face her then, the room falling momentarily silent save for their own breaths, mingling together under soft lighting that cast shadows along stark architectural lines. "Right," he agreed with a nod of acceptance more than argumentation. "Adult." She stepped closer, and Marcus felt his heart rate quicken slightly despite how well he knew these interactions were nothing but the charade continuing through to its next phase, though some part of him wished it could be something else entirely. He watched as Vailith walked around to the opposite side of the bed, her movements deliberate yet smooth. There was an elegance, even in practicality, for a Corsini. He settled down on his designated half of the mattress, feeling its firmness beneath him, and wondering how many nights he might spend this way, sleeping alone, but not truly. Vailith situated herself similarly across from him, both positioning themselves carefully so as to avoid accidental contact during restful hours ahead. The room seemed too large in that moment for just one bed between two people pretending. A comfortable silence filled the space initially, each focused on their own thoughts, rather than engaging with what might have been a fragile peace between them. Marcus found himself studying Vailith from across the distance of pillows and sheets, noting how different she appeared under softer lightingless and intimidating figurehead, but more like someone who could be vulnerable if allowed. Vailith eventually broke the silence first, when she shifted slightly to face him directly through darkness softened by ambient lights. "Thank you for doing this," she whispered genuinely, her voice barely above a breath itself amidst lingering shadows of evening light fading into nightfall. Marcus felt his chest warm unexpectedly, despite knowing fully well no real sentimentality lay behind such acknowledgment other than mutual necessity. "It's my job," he replied evenly, but without sharpness that might have betrayed discomfort or deeper emotions beneath current circumstances. Yet, even as these words passed lips pressed tight in quiet professionalism, something within him hesitated, wondering if she detected more hesitation on his part too. The room felt suddenly charged with unspoken understanding, then an acknowledgement of shared weight carried not merely through professional ties, but perhaps now under an additional layer of personal sacrifice. Neither spoke further immediately, as the silence stretched out between them once again, thickened by newly considered depths in each other's gaze and presence within confines of their temporary home. "Is that the only reason?" Vailith's voice finally questioned, after long moments spent observing one another through dimly lit spaces dividing bodies, but not necessarily minds or feelings stirring beneath surface-level interactions. Marcus swallowed hard, his heart pounding loudly enough for ears close by to hear. Words seemed inadequate under circumstances fraught with unspoken truths and carefully guarded walls of self-protection against potential vulnerability lying just below surfaces touched upon now in quiet darkness shared between them alone within suite's confines. "No," Marcus admitted quietly, after a moment more reflection on truth beyond current pretense. "It's not the only reason." With that admission hanging heavily, an air surrounding both figures entwined by fate and necessity tonight under starlit skies outside, neither needed further explanation nor excuse for actions taken thus far or those potentially ahead, as the charade continued playing out its unfolding narrative through days yet to come. The next morning dawned with equally hectic preparation rituals leading up not only towards upcoming public appearances required, but also personal adjustments still needing accommodation within evolving dynamic of their temporary partnership turned more intimate through nights spent sharing space meant for two genuinely married individuals. As they moved throughout the day, Marcus felt a shift in atmosphere around them, from those observing and questioning to now openly admiring, with whispers about genuine affection between Vailith and her human husband. These external validations made it harder still to maintain strict boundaries previously held firmly intact amidst professional distance, cultivated long before this current predicament. Yet despite growing awareness amongst their peers, Marcus focused intently on ensuring every detail aligned perfectly for next day's merger negotiations, a task that required precision beyond casual pretense into realm of true preparation, where success or failure hinged upon meticulous planning rather than mere appearances. Throughout another evening event filled with lavish dinners and formal interactions, Marcus found himself increasingly aware how people around them began viewing their charade less as subterfuge, but genuine partnership forged through necessity, yet evolving towards something more sincere amidst shared challenges faced together day after day. Whispers turned into openly admiring glances directed toward Valeth, now acknowledged alongside Marcus in ways previously unimaginable before this arrangement was formalized. Rivals who once doubted stability due to personal status now appeared genuinely impressed by devotion shown between them at every turn. Rivals whispered amongst themselves they seemed genuinely in love. As evening fell once more, Marcus found himself navigating another lavish dinner amidst such conversations echoing through halls and corridors surrounding their gathering space. Each moment felt like it was building up towards something larger than just appearances, something that hinted deeper connections waiting to be explored once professional facade ended. For now, though, everything needed focus on this performance until they reached its end point where reality would inevitably take over again. But amidst glamour and intricacies of these few days, Todia are pretending beyond boundaries previously untested waters remained invitingly close, ready for them should both choose to venture further into unknown territories waiting just ahead once their current mission concluded. The night drew in around Marcus and Valeth, the suite's lights dimming to a comforting glow that cast long shadows on their faces. As they lay awake in separate halves of the single bed, the unspoken acknowledgment lingered between them beyond professional duty. There was an undercurrent of mutual respect and burgeoning understanding. "Sleep well," Marcus whispered eventually into the quietude, feeling his heart ease slightly at the sight of Valeth's serene features, even as she remained alert to her surroundings. Valeth turned towards him briefly before returning to a more comfortable position. "You too." As dawn approached and the world beyond their suite began to stir with preparations for another day filled with negotiations, Marcus knew this momentous shared space and quiet understanding was but one in an evolving narrative that would continue to unfold long after tomorrow's ceremony ended. For now, though, it was enough to navigate through current challenges together while acknowledging the potential of something more beneath surface-level interactions forged amidst necessity and circumstance. The morning light filtered through the suite's curtains, casting a gentle glow over Marcus and Valeth as they prepared for another day of negotiations and formalities. The atmosphere was tense. Whispers about their relationship had begun to spread beyond mere rumors into speculative conversations among other executives attending the event. As breakfast was served on small tables positioned strategically around the room, Marcus found himself seated next to Director Crathnell, an imposing alien with a reputation for being ruthless in both business and personal endeavors. He noticed that Valeth, across from him, subtly tensed at his presence, a clear signal of caution rather than comfort. "Good morning, Mr. Reed," said Crathnell smoothly, offering Marcus an unsettlingly friendly smile laced with hidden intentions. "I hope you're adjusting well to our little charade." Marcus returned the greeting with a polite nod, but kept his guard up as he turned back towards Vailith, who gave him a brief, reassuring glance before focusing her attention on Crathnall's next comment. "Zeo Corson," continued Director Crathnall, addressing Vailith directly while maintaining eye contact only long enough to be polite. "I believe you and your assistant here are doing quite admirably in these negotiations thus far." Vailith's silver skin remained cool, but a slight shimmering of colors betrayed her inner thoughts. She was clearly watching every move Crathnall made with wary precision. "Thank you," Vailith replied evenly. "It is our mutual goal to ensure the success of this merger for both companies involved." Crathnall nodded slowly before leaning in slightly towards Marcus, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret, but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear him clearly. "I must say, Mr. Reed, you seem quite at ease with your wife." He smirked. Marcus' face remained stoic, but inside he felt the urge to roll his eyes. Was well aware of Crathnall's reputation and knew exactly what kind of game he might be playing here today. "I am fortunate," Marcus replied diplomatically. "Professional compatibility can often foster personal connection over time." This answer left some room for interpretation, yet did not give anything away directly. Either Vailith subtly smiled at him, appreciating his tactful response, even as she maintained her focus on the other executive present across from them. As they moved into meeting rooms later that morning, Crathnall led a small group including Marcus and Vailith to an unusual session set up in what appeared initially like any standard negotiation area until one of its members introduced them all briefly to a more intimate challenge designed specifically for their pair. "This exercise is meant to test genuine bonds," he explained. "Only those truly connected would know each other intimately." Marcus felt the tension rise as Crathnall watched with visible anticipation, awaiting Marcus and Vailith's reaction. They faced an arranged scenario designed around personal details. No mere assistant would likely have access to their favorite tea, childhood dreams, secret fears. Crathnall stepped forward, presenting a tray of various teas from different planets. "Vailith Corson, please indicate which of these is your preferred choice." Each cup was labeled, but the task felt oddly intimate. Marcus could see Vailith's subtle nervousness. She scanned each label before her eyes settled on one. "This," she said quietly, choosing a delicate lavender-flavored tea from Andaria planet, known for its exquisite herbal blends and serene landscapes. Crathnall nodded approvingly at this correct answer, but then pointed out another challenge equally daunting. "What is your childhood dream, Vailith?" Marcus watched closely as Vailith hesitated slightly. Had never spoken about such personal matters publicly, but she squared her shoulders before answering confidently. "To explore the galaxy and build bridges between different species for mutual growth." Crathnall raised an eyebrow at this, but moved on to ask more direct questions. "And what is your secret fear?" Marcus felt his heart quicken as Vailith's silver skin began showing rapid color changes, indicating her emotional state becoming visible. She looked directly into Crathnall's eyes before finally answering with a small voice, "Being alone." Crathnall smirked, yet seemed satisfied she had answered correctly. Moving swiftly then to Marcus, he pivoted the challenge onto him immediately. "And what personal detail about your wife here do you share?" Marcus was caught off guard by this directness, but found himself responding instinctively with an answer that surprised everyone present, including Vailith herself. "Her favorite tea is Andorian lavender blend," he said matter-of-factly. "She dreamed of exploring galaxies and connecting species." Vailith blinked in surprise at his straightforward revelation, This was information no one else knew despite their close professional relationship. And what's her secret fear? Crathnall pressed further, clearly enjoying this test designed just for them both. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling emotions stirring within him as he turned back to face Valeth squarely, now standing beside her. Being alone, Marcus echoed softly, but firmly, confirming her earlier statement without hesitation. The room fell silent momentarily before erupting into murmurs of surprise and admiration from those observing this unusual display of personal vulnerability between two leading executives, usually seen only in professional light. Valeth's silver skin shimmered uncontrollably, now showing a mix of emotions: relief, gratitude towards Marcus for speaking up about her fear so openly, but also something deeper, a sense of connection they hadn't fully acknowledged until today, amidst such public scrutiny forced upon them by Crathnall's test. "How do you know these things?" Valeth asked later, when everyone else had dispersed, leaving just the two of them alone again in their suite's living room, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "I mean, you've always been so professional around everything." Marcus gave her one of his quick smiles that masked deeper feelings, but managed to still convey sincerity here amidst all this formality, suddenly turned personal between them after such an unexpected public challenge. "I pay attention," Marcus replied simply, looking directly into Valeth's violet eyes. "I always have." Her silver skin began shifting colors rapidly, no shades of emerald green hinting at warmth, and blue indicating calm, mixed together, creating a mesmerizing display rarely seen even by closest members within Corsini hierarchy. "Marcus," she started, but stopped, words seemingly stuck in her throat, as if unsure how to continue after such an emotional exchange amidst their professional facade having been momentarily stripped away just now before everyone present. In that moment of silence between them lay a deeper understanding, a recognition of mutual respect and care beyond mere duty. The space felt charged with new possibilities, even as they prepared for another day filled still primarily with formalities, yet aware these lines had blurred considerably in the wake of Crathnall's test designed to expose any pretense remaining. For now, though, it was enough that amidst all this professional performance there remained an unspoken truth growing steadily stronger between them through shared challenges faced together over last few days, forged amidst necessity, but evolving towards something more sincere yet undefined, moving forward into future beyond current mission's conclusion just ahead. The night drew in around Marcus and Valeth once again, the suite's lights dimming to a comforting glow that cast long shadows on their faces. As they lay awake in separate halves of the single bed, the unspoken acknowledgement lingered between them beyond professional duty. There was an undercurrent of mutual respect and burgeoning understanding. "Sleep well," Marcus whispered eventually into the quietude, feeling his heart ease slightly at the sight of Valeth's serene features, even as she remained alert to her surroundings. Valeth turned towards him briefly before returning to a more comfortable position. "You too." As dawn approached, and the world beyond their suite began to stir with preparations for another day filled with negotiations, Marcus knew this moment the shared space and quiet understanding was but one in an evolving narrative that would continue to unfold long after tomorrow's ceremony ended. For now, though, it was enough to navigate through current challenges together while acknowledging the potential of something more beneath surface-level interactions forged amidst necessity and circumstance. And the grand ballroom of the Celestial Tower was aglow in soft, twinkling lights that cast a warm and inviting aura over everyone present at the merger celebration gala. Marcus Red stood beside Valeth Corson as she greeted dignitaries from all corners of known space who had gathered to celebrate the successful conclusion of their alliance negotiations with Crathnall's corporation. The air was thick with anticipation, but beneath it lay a subtle undercurrent of tension that only those deeply involved in corporate politics could detect. Crathnall himself stood at the edge of the room, his eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of weakness or vulnerability he could exploit against Valeth and her growing reputation. Despite all outward appearances to the contrary, a resplendent ballroom filled with laughter, dancing, and congratulations was planning one final move, a public challenge designed to test not just their business acumen, but also their personal resolve. As the night progressed, and plates of exotic delicacies were cleared away by hovering service drones, Crathnall made his way across the room. With a calculated grace that belied any notion of spontaneity, he approached Valeth directly. She met him with her usual stoic demeanor, but Marcus could see tension radiating from her silver skin as it subtly shifted hues, indicating emotions below the surface. "Valeth," Crathnall began, his voice dripping with false congeniality that made those around them lean in to catch every word, "I hope you haven't overlooked this little detail in your preparations. After all, the marriage of convenience is not just a show for us, it's a symbol of trust and unity." Valeth's eyes narrowed slightly at his words. "What are you implying?" Crathnall smiled thinly, looking almost amused by her direct challenge. "I'm merely suggesting that perhaps your personal assistant here," he gestured towards Marcus with exaggerated politeness, "is not who we think he is." The room fell into a hushed silence as Crathnall's words hung in the air like an accusation waiting to be confirmed or denied. Valeth froze momentarily, her silver skin shifting rapidly through shades of emerald and blue, a clear sign that she was struggling internally with how to respond. She glanced at Marcus out of the corner of her eye before turning back to Crathnall, choosing each word carefully, as though they were weapons in themselves. "I understand your concerns," she said evenly but firmly, "but let me assure you that my personal assistant is exactly who he claims to be." Crathnall chuckled dryly and took a step closer, almost invading her personal space intentionally. "Isn't it true then," he continued without missing a beat, "that even if this union were real on paper, the truth of your relationship would soon come into question?" Before anyone could react further, Marcus stepped forward from beside Valeth. The room's sudden hush intensified as every eye turned towards him. "I've worked beside her for 3 years," he spoke not to Crathnall, but directly at everyone present in that quiet, authoritative tone one might expect of a seasoned executive assistant addressing high-level stakeholders. "I know when she's tired, but won't admit it. I know she reads poetry when no one's watching, because they're tucked away right here." Marcus tapped his temple gently, conveying the intimate knowledge he possessed about Valeth that most others could never fathom. And Marcus continued more quietly yet with unmistakable conviction, turning to face Valeth now directly in front of him so she couldn't miss seeing their reflection in each other's eyes as everyone else watched on intently. "I know I stopped pretending a long time ago." The room fell silent once again, but this time not out of tension or anticipation. This silence was one of profound respect and recognition for the depth of Marcus' words and Valeth's strength. Once the gala concluded and the remaining guests began to disperse, leaving behind only close associates who lingered a bit longer before heading home themselves, Marcus found himself alone with Veilith in their private suite's living room. The atmosphere was different now, less formal, more personal, yet still fraught with unspoken questions. "How do you know these things?" Veilith asked later when they were finally left to speak privately, amidst the lingering echoes of evening preparations being tidied up around them. Her voice held a mixture of awe and curiosity that Marcus found both endearing and unsettling in equal measure, given its rarity within their relationship thus far. Marcus gave her one of his quick smiles, the type he usually used when under pressure, yet managing to convey sincere feeling despite any professional veneer required by circumstance. "I pay attention," Marcus replied simply but directly into Veilith's violet eyes, which were now fixed on him intensely, as if searching for deeper meaning beneath surface observations and words. Her silver skin began shifting colors, rapidly adding shades of emerald green hinting at warmth, mixed with blue indicating calm, creating a mesmerizing display rarely seen even by closest members within Corsini hierarchy, suggesting Veilith was indeed deeply affected by his candid acknowledgment amidst public scrutiny earlier in the evening that she had never expected from him. "Marcus," she started, but stopped mid-sentence, as if unsure how to continue after such an emotional yet brief exchange made intensely personal just now before everyone present. Her gaze faltered slightly under his unwavering look, perhaps searching for guidance on what came next between them, despite both maintaining professional distance thus far due primarily out of necessity rather than genuine reluctance. In that moment of silence between them lay a deeper understanding, a recognition of mutual respect and care beyond mere duty. The space felt charged with new possibilities, yet tempered by awareness. These lines had blurred considerably in the wake of Crathnall's test designed to expose any pretense remaining amidst their business-driven facade. For now, though, it was enough that amidst all this professional performance there remained an unspoken truth, growing steadily stronger between them through shared challenges faced together over last few days, forged amidst necessity, yet evolving towards something more sincere, moving forward into future beyond current mission's conclusion just ahead. The night drew in around Marcus and Veilith once again as they prepared for sleep within their shared accommodations, the suite's lights dimming to a comforting glow that cast long shadows on their faces. As they lay awake in separate halves of the single bed assigned for such public appearances, yet clearly more personal than ever before, unspoken acknowledgment lingered between them. "Sleep well," Marcus whispered eventually into the quietude, feeling his heart ease slightly at the sight of Veilith's serene features, even as she remained alert to her surroundings despite exhaustion setting in after a long day fraught with high-stakes interactions and unexpected emotional revelations. Veilith turned towards him briefly before returning to more comfortable position. "You too." As dawn approached and the world beyond their suite began to stir, preparing for another day-filled negotiations, Marcus knew this moment this shared space and quiet understanding was but one in an evolving narrative that would continue unfold long after tomorrow's ceremony ended. For now, though, it was enough to navigate through current challenges together while acknowledging potential of something more beneath surface level interactions forged amidst necessity and circumstance, moving forward into future beyond immediate demands placed on them currently by galactic business politics. And the conference room at Corsini Corporation was tense, filled with a palpable silence as Crathnall's accusation lingered in the air like an unwelcome fog. Marcus felt his heart pounding in his chest, but he remained resolute, knowing that this moment required him to step up and defend not only himself, but also Violet's honor. Clearing his throat, he stood from his seat at the table where they'd been pretending their marriage was real for days, eyes fixed on Crathnall. Crathnall, Marcus began evenly, his voice cutting through the silence with a razor-sharp precision that demanded attention. You want to know if Violet and I are genuinely married? Let me tell you this. I stood here moments ago and made vows to her as my wife in front of our rivals, because she asked me to do so out of necessity for business reasons. Crathnall smirked clearly, expecting a flimsy defense. And what makes those vows any different from the ones we saw just days before? Those were staged performances, Mr. Reed, he sneered. Marcus' blue eyes narrowed as his mind raced through Violet's words and actions over their time together, recalling every moment that hinted at more than mere business necessity. He took a deep breath and let out a slow exhale, choosing each word carefully to convey the truth of what had transpired between them in recent days. I'm here because I care about your CEO, Marcus said firmly, his voice steady despite the internal tumult. Violet has been open with me more than any client or business partner ever was, and that's rare for someone like her. He paused to let those words sink in before continuing, knowing he had to dig deeper into something more personal if there was a chance of convincing them. She confided in me about her struggles. She doesn't have many people she can rely on without feeling exposed or vulnerable, Marcus added quietly but with conviction, glancing at Violet, whose gaze was locked onto him now as well, surprise flickering across her silver skin briefly before being replaced by determination to see this through. He's had a difficult year and hasn't let anyone get too close for fear of revealing more than she intended. But I am someone who understands the pressures she faces, perhaps better than most here, he continued softly yet pointedly at Crathnall, his eyes never leaving Violet's as they shared an unspoken acknowledgement. And tonight was different because what we said and did, those vows, that moment of truth between us, they were real for a reason. Marcus's voice softened further, but carried with it the weight of sincerity. We stopped pretending. The room fell silent once more as every eye turned toward Violet, whose iridescent skin had shifted from its usual cool hues into shades of deep violet and emerald, reflecting her inner turmoil before settling back to a neutral hue when she met Marcus' steady gaze. Mr. Reed, said one of the other board members, who'd remained silent thus far but couldn't help himself in light of this revelation, if you say it was real, then I believe that your relationship is genuine. Marcus nodded gratefully at him, feeling a surge of relief as others began murmuring their agreement. Violet, Marcus said gently now to his boss, turning fully toward her with open eyes and an honest smile playing across his lips. We've come this far because we trust each other, whether we like it or not. He saw something shift in Violet's expression as she processed what had just shared, the truth that they both had been dancing around but never directly admitted until now. Thank you, she finally spoke after a long moment of silence, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying through the room nonetheless. It was more than mere gratitude. It conveyed an unspoken understanding between them that their performance hadn't just been professional duty, but had grown into something deeper over time despite all odds against it. With those words hanging in the air like an acceptance of what might be possible moving forward, Marcus turned back to address everyone present once again. If this merger is going to succeed, and we both know how important that is for our companies, we need to move past these doubts and focus on doing business together as partners. The room seemed to collectively exhale in relief, the tension breaking like ice under a summer sun as Crathnall finally conceded, albeit grudgingly. "Very well," he growled before turning away from them with one last glare aimed squarely at Marcus before leaving. As the remaining executives began discussing next steps for moving forward together now that the immediate threat of sabotage was over thanks to their combined efforts, both Veilith and Marcus felt a sense of release wash over them. They'd won this particular battle, but knew more challenges awaited ahead in building trust within these new alliances established under such dubious circumstances. The negotiations continued well into the early hours of morning, until finally concluding with success that had seemed impossible just days ago, a testament to their ability not only as professionals but also individuals who had found unexpected strength and support from one another through mutual vulnerability and honesty despite all odds against them. As the rooftop garden at Corsini Corporation headquarters, Marcus stood leaning against the railing overlooking a cityscape bathed in golden light. A sense of calm settled upon him now that immediate threats to their success had been neutralized, but left him pondering what came next between himself and Veilith amidst ongoing public scrutiny, yet also personal respect earned over recent days. Was any of it true? Her voice cut through his thoughts, breaking the silence like a delicate thread snipping apart its previous fabric. Marcus turned around to face her, seeing nothing but sincerity in those violet eyes reflecting all she had been willing to risk for this moment, both professionally and person, a little prove who they were beyond mere appearances. "All of it," he replied without hesitation, his tone steady yet open enough to convey the truth behind his words earlier that evening. She stepped closer now, her silver skin shifting hues again, but in a way indicative less of discomfort than introspection as she considered what came next for them. "Then perhaps we should stop pretending it's pretend," Veilith said softly, after another brief pause filled with unspoken questions and anticipation, stepping even nearer until there was little distance left between them, standing on the rooftop balcony overlooking sunrise over city skyline behind. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat at her words-sized woman who had become so much more than just his boss or colleague, but someone he genuinely cared about in ways that went beyond professional obligations alone. "I think I'd like that," Marcus whispered back honestly, letting some of the tension ease from shoulders and allowing himself to meet her gaze openly for once. And then silence edged. Two people standing together under a sky painted gold by first light of new day ahead as they faced reality, moving forward into uncertain but hopeful future beyond current missions, demands placed on them. For Marcus, it was about finally acknowledging his feelings that had simmered beneath surface interactions with Veilith for so long, and for her, it felt like coming home after years away from family despite everything. 6 months later, under an autumn sky colored by the warm tones of amber leaves fluttering down around a large garden sanctuary within Corsini's headquarters, Marcus Red knelt before CEO Veilith Corsin during their wedding ceremony. Around them gathered friends and colleagues who had come to witness this momentous union between two individuals whose relationship had transcended business partnership long ago. "I promise to always know your favorite tea," Marcus said with a gentle smile as he gazed up at her from where he knelt, his voice warm yet steady in its commitment. Veilith's iridescent skin glowed softly beneath the sunlight filtering through trees and flowers around them, reflecting not just shades of emotion, but also something new, happiness. Veilith laughed for perhaps one of the first times since anyone had ever seen among her usual stoic demeanor, a sound like silver chimes ringing clear in air. It was a beautiful thing to hear from someone so commanding yet privately reserved, and those present couldn't help feeling moved by this display rarely shown, even closest confidantes, within Corsini hierarchy. "Best business arrangement I ever made," Valeth whispered back, with that rare smile still playing across lips, causing her silver skin to shift into purest shade of gold before fading again, almost immediately, under more familiar hues reflecting emotions she kept tightly controlled otherwise. Marcus grinned up at her, feeling a swell of affection welling inside him as he returned gaze now filled not just mutual respect, but also deep-seated love and understanding growing between them over time. "So about those sleeping arrangements," and with that simple statement hanging between them amidst gathering guests celebrating their union stood testament to how far they had come from initial awkwardness masked under professional pretense toward genuine connection forged through shared struggles. Challenges faced Toj Thuren now officially recognized as bound by more than just duty. End.